The Ministry of Social Development and Seniors gave their 23-24 brief, and some of the highlights that came out that were of most interest and concern for me and for the One Bermuda Alliance is that for another year, seniors are going to have to wait for a national senior strategy. It's been something that's been ongoing for a number of years under a number of PLP ministers, and we still find that it's in development without any progress. My other concern is that there were no increases for rest home grants. And rest homes have to have the same high costs of living as everyone else. And so there are no additional funds for them to pay for the rising costs and the high costs for food, for electricity, and for supplies. The ministry's mission to partner with private sector or other government ministries to develop social and senior communities, there's been no progress. And there's no plan for the ministry to action any laws around senior abuse, which is on the rise. So there aren't any plans for any laws to protect our seniors for neglect or emotional or physical abuse and injury. So those were my highlights coming out of the briefing, and certainly work needs to be done, and we need to get into action and start to develop and implement and action some of the needed support that the senior community needs. Thanks.
Questions, anybody? Happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Sean Connolly from the Royal Gazette. Good morning. Mr. Burt said in the budget that in 2018 the government agreed to provide the hospital with 322 million of funding each year, but never honoured that promise. Do you think there should be an inquiry into why that happened?
Well, the concerns that I raised yesterday obviously are part of questioning that the loyal opposition has done. Look, it's just an abject failure. Unfortunately, Premier Burt is very good at coming out in a stylish way and giving some background to plans that often these plans don't materialize. And then he runs away and allows other people to take the flak on it. The poor Minister of Health is the one that had to announce that $32 million was missing. But last I checked, he was the Minister of Finance who should be on top of that purse strings. So at the least we're owed an explanation. Look, I just think it is a simple, very poor oversight, and there must be some accountability. And it just won't happen under the PLP because they want to move on to the next trouble that they create. It's unacceptable. The hospital should have some understanding of what their budget is going to be, and they should be closer communication and better communication where the hospital tells them what the challenges are rather than just find out when the budget is tabled that they've been given an extra $15 million. I mean, Sean, can you imagine? If you were a little short of money, you just go to your employer and say, can you give me a little bit extra and I'll be all right? It doesn't work like that in the real way, but that's the way the PLP treat the taxpayer. No accountability, lack of explanation.
The underfunding since 2018, do you think that could have caused patients to unnecessarily suffer or that their health problems weren't properly dealt with?
I'm not going to be the judge on that because I don't have the inside information, but it's logical that can be the case. And obviously COVID has had something to do with it too, because the hospital from 2020 to about halfway through 2022 had to limit things that they can do. So elective surgeries were put off, and quite often for senior, elective surgeries on your eyes can have a drastic impact. So, it's anytime the hospital is faced with challenges, you need to take them seriously and deal with them, and this government simply hasn't done it.
Do you think hospital managers also have questions to answer about this?
Well, I do think so, because if you're not receiving the grant, if I was due the money, I'd be calling people to ask what's going on. And that's why I'm very interested to see the financial reports. And isn't it interesting? The last financial report is 2018-2019 when the grant just started.
So would you say there's been a dereliction of duty at the hospital as well?
That's your words, and I think it applies to everyone, because financial reporting for any organization is key. And in the real world, not Bert's world, in the real world, people have to have that reporting.
Right. I know it's not directly your remit, but it's to do with what you've been speaking about. The Bermuda Gaming Commission is going to receive a guarantee of almost 10 million from the government to allow it to borrow money to keep operating. I mean, what's your view on that?
We haven't debated that yet, but with the way that the PLP has talked about guarantees, this is certainly an interesting development. And it perhaps is a way for them to get some outside money involved if the government is backing the Gaming Commission. But certainly, I can't see how it's going to work in any way, because who wants to support the Gaming Commission when this government has not moved gaming forward in any way, in spite of all the talk about it? So the government has to explain it next week.
May I also add to that as well? It's my understanding that that guarantee is also backing a loan that the government has asked the Gaming Commission to go to the bank to get. So there's some trouble there, and clearly there's no revenue coming in. They've got huge overheads for an industry in gaming that may not ever get off the ground at this point because of the government's influence. So having a guarantee to go to the bank to get a loan to keep the operations going for a gaming industry that may never happen sounds a bit questionable for me.
There's your answer.
What do you mean by trouble?
Well, we've had 2 hotels pull out, right? So the Hamilton Princess, they're not interested in gaming anymore. They got frustrated and walked away. St. Regis has done the same. And so I don't know who else is going to be interested. And certainly by the time the Fairmont Southampton gets off the ground, either the Gaming Commission will be so out of funds for operations that there won't be enough energy or resource to even begin to implement or move gaming forward at the Fairmont Southampton.
Do you think the GVC needs a complete overhaul then?
Maybe pivot and find something that would be more lucrative for Bermuda and redirect those resources to something that actually is going to generate some revenue for Bermuda.
Okay, just going back to Mr. Dunkley. I know it's been abandoned now and you all love each other again, well, nearly all of you. But I'm just curious, did Mr. Simons ever convey to you his reasoning for bringing back such a controversial government tax as the TA?
I have nothing further to add to that, because I addressed it in the House of Assembly, which is public record, and I think that comment in the House of Assembly gives you all the answer you need to your question. You know, I know it's an interesting topic for members of the media, but at some point you really can't say any more about it.
Yeah, but finally though, so you will accept though, I mean, you've reversed it now and everything, but you've given the PLP a lot of ammunition, haven't you? Because they'll now try to portray you as the TA party. So from that sense, it has been a political own goal, hasn't it?
Yeah, but you know, quite often in games, people will score an own goal and still win the match. We're a strong team, and we all make mistakes. I've made many mistakes in my political career, and I still stand on integrity and character, and that's what the opposition leader has done. So we have to move forward. If I could say I'd never make another mistake in politics, I'll be the happiest person in this country. But it's going to happen. It just happens in this thing. And so the PLP can run as far as they want with it. But when you focus in on, as a government on your opposition, that means you're just trying to hide your own problems. They got a lot of problems they can't hide.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jasmine.
Good morning. You mentioned that there's quite a lot of debt from the hospital, but the government has decided to invest about $700K into a community clinic in Mangrove Bay in Somerset. Do you think that's a wise decision?
Good question, and I did speak to that yesterday as well. And what I basically said to the Honourable Minister is that with healthcare, we need to be very careful about how we spend our resources, because it's so expensive and insurance keeps rising and all that type of stuff. And it's also simple that with healthcare, the more facilities you open up, the increased usage you will have. Studies all over the world show that. And so while all politicians want to have accessibility to healthcare all across their jurisdictions, it's something they could easily sell to cabinet. We have to be careful that the dollars that we have aren't being stretched even further. Now, we know the financial problems at the hospital. We know that the Lam Fogo Clinic has been on reduced hours from time to time. We know, as the minister said in her own presentation, that was a global shortage of nurses and healthcare staff. So the government needs to make sure they have a real good plan to make this work, and our healthcare costs won't go up, or the service you promised will not be able to be delivered. Because, Jasmine, you yourself know as well as we do that if you give somebody something, if there's an opportunity for it and you take it away, it doesn't go down well.
But in principle, you support a clinic in the West End?
Yes.
Principle, but we don't know enough about it, right? And that's what government does. They float these plans like red balloons, and then sometimes just walk away and see if they float or pop. It's not good leadership.
And I'd like to add too, from a senior's perspective, that having a community health center is a good idea. And so from a community and a social aspect of having a clinic, as well as it being close proximity to people's homes, is a nice thing. I believe the big risk and the disappointment would be that if that Mangrove Bay Health Clinic opens and then it's closed because they don't have the resources to open it, because they don't have the staff to staff it, and then it becomes a disappointment for the members of that community who may get used to, and then it's all of a sudden falling apart. So I believe that they really need to look at sustaining it if they're gonna go for it.
Thank you, and if I may ask just one question for Mr. Dunkley. You yourself, you've been in Mr. Simon's position as leader of the OBA. Have you given any encouragement through all this political storm that you've been experiencing?
I wouldn't call it a political storm. That's what happens in the life of politics. I've been through much worse storms in my life, but it's, as somebody who's been involved in politics for some time and seen a lot, I try to give support as much as I can, quietly, or sometimes, just a little bit more overtly. That's what we need in politics. Sometimes you're left out there on your own, and you need to support your colleagues. And I've known Cole for a long time. Actually, I'm his MP, so we have pretty close relationship there as well.
Do you think at all it's caused significant damage to the party?
I think initially it probably did, but we can regroup from that. In life, we all have our falls. You got to get up and go again. And as the Honorable former Premier Craig Kennedy said, Cole's a man of integrity and character, and if he gives an apology, that means a lot coming from someone like him. He's a good man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.